not too long of a presentation. But the first part of the presentation isn't even me. It's I want to give you an introduction to a little video, which is really not even a video, it's really audio. So I got this from YouTube. It's a very famous speech. And the speaker is a guy named David Foster Wallace. All right, is this doing okay? David Foster Wallace. He's a best-selling author, and he used to be a professor of English at, I forget the name of the college, which college he was. And he's not a Christian. I'm not even sure if he believes in God. Right? And so I don't know tons about him. All I did was I just looked him up a bit. I knew a little bit about him, and then I read up a little bit about him. From what I understood, his parents are atheists. His parents are academics. They were both professors. And he himself was quite the writer. And so he gave this commencement address at Kenyon College back in 2005. And by the way, David Foster Wallace, he passed away because in 2008 he hung himself. Okay, so this is a brilliant address, and it's really popular. And if you want to hear the whole thing, so we're just going to only listen to a portion of it, just for time's sake. I've kind of cut out about 9 minutes out of a 22-minute address. And I think some of the things he says is really worth listening to. And this handout I've given you, this is the whole of the address. I mean, someone went ahead and transcribed all of it. Someone went ahead and transcribed all of it. It's okay. And but if you flip over to the third page. So if you're one of these people that likes to see the text, this is what this is for. If you just want to listen, that's fine. But the highlighted portion is the parts we're going to listen to. So there's a portion from the first half, and then in the middle there's a break. And in the middle I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to just quickly summarize some of the stuff he says in the middle for time's sake. And then we'll hear some stuff, a good chunk of the latter portion. And then I'm going to give you some comments about it. And hopefully this won't, I don't intend to talk too long, maybe 20, 25 minutes total, including his portion. And then we'll open up to Q&A. Does that sound good? All right, so this is David Foster Wallace. And you'll see a little video come up, but like I said, you'll see what he looks like, but mostly you're just listening to him talk.
Two guys sitting together in a bar in the remote Alaskan wilderness. One of the guys is religious, the other's an atheist. And the two are arguing about the existence of God with that special intensity that comes after about the fourth beer. And the atheist says, look, it's not like I don't have actual reasons for not believing in God. It's not like I haven't ever experimented with the whole God and prayer thing. Just last month, I got caught away from camp in that terrible blizzard. And I was totally lost, and I couldn't see a thing. And it was 50 below. And so I tried it. I fell to my knees in the snow and cried out, oh God, if there is a God, I'm lost in this blizzard and I'm going to die if you don't help me. And now, in the bar, the religious guy looks at the atheist all puzzled. Well, then you must believe now, he says. After all, here you are, alive. The atheist just rolls his eyes. No, man, all that was a couple Eskimos happened to come wandering by and they showed me the way back to camp. It's easy to run this story through a kind of standard liberal arts analysis. The exact same experience can mean two totally different things to two different people, given those people's two different belief templates and two different ways of constructing meaning from experience. Because we prize tolerance and diversity of belief, nowhere in our liberal arts analysis do we want to claim that one guy's interpretation is true and the other guy's is false or bad. Which is fine, except we also never end up talking about just where these individual templates and beliefs come from, meaning where they come from inside the two guys. As if a person's most basic orientation toward the world and the meaning of his experience were somehow just hardwired, like height or shoe size, or automatically absorbed from the culture, like language. As if how we construct meaning were not actually a matter of personal, intentional choice. Plus there's the matter of arrogance. The non-religious guy is so totally certain in his dismissal of the possibility that the passing Eskimos had anything to do with his prayer for help. True, there are plenty of religious people who seem arrogantly certain of their own interpretations too. They're probably even more repulsive than atheists, at least to most of us. But religious dogmatist problem is exactly the same as the story's unbeliever. Blind certainty. A closed-mindedness that amounts to an imprisonment so total that the prisoner doesn't even know he's locked up. The point here is that I think this is one part of what teaching me how to think is really supposed to mean. To be just a little less arrogant. To have just a little critical awareness about myself and my certainties. Because a huge percentage of stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of is, it turns out, totally wrong and deluded. I have learned this the hard way, as I predict you graduates will too. Here is just one example of the total wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe. The realest, most vivid, and important person in existence. We rarely talk about this sort of natural, basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive. But it's pretty much the same for all of us. It is our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There is no experience you have had that you are not at the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you or behind you, to the left or right of you, on your TV or your monitor, and so on. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated to you somehow, but your own are so immediate, urgent, real. Please don't worry that I'm getting ready to lecture you about compassion or other directedness or all the so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It's a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural, hardwired default setting, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered, and to see and interpret everything through this lens of self. People who can adjust their natural default setting this way are often described as being well-adjusted, which I suggest to you is not an accidental term.
So we're going to pause there for a moment. And by the way, if you really want to listen to the whole thing, I recommend listening to you the whole. I gave you the whole. If you want to go home and you can find it on YouTube. The address is called "This Is Water." I mean, we kind of skipped over why that's called that, but let me just summarize the next portion. You know, he's talked about this problem of like the atheist guy and then the religious guy, and the atheist guy had this experience, and he had this, he had essentially an unbelieving twist on it. And then he talks about this problem of being hardwired. He calls it the default mode of being literally self-centered. I mean, like everything is like, you just experience everything where you're in the center of it. And then he goes on to say, if you're really going to be more of a well-adjusted person, when you leave here from college, you're going to find out that there are a lot of really frustrating things about adult life that they don't tell you about. I mean, there's a lot of things that just make you miserable that you don't talk about. So let me just summarize a little bit. He gives you an example of, like, you go to work, you have a hard day of work, you work 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and you're about to go home, and then you realize you don't have any food. And since you don't have any food, you have to go to the supermarket. So you go to the supermarket, and you find out that the lighting there is completely horrible, and your cart has like that one bad wheel, and everybody is in your way. And of course, because they have the same problem too, because they have to go get food. And you essentially sit there, and you're feeling utterly miserable and angry. And this is part of life. And if you don't have some other way to get outside of your default mode of self-centeredness, it's just going to eat you up. Like just this. This is a very common kind of thing that happens in adult life. And this one thing, which happens again and again, and he gives you this example. And then he starts challenging you. Can you look at it? Do you have some resources? If you actually have a good liberal arts education, it teaches you. The point is not that you know how to think, is that you can learn how to choose to think differently. You can choose to consider how to think about it differently. And then he offers us some different possibilities of how you might interpret how you may perceive that experience of being in the supermarket. And that's where we're about to pick up, okay? So this is the latter portion of where he talks about that. And so he's talking about seeing somebody that is not so pretty and is in your way, and instead looking at that in the supermarket, instead looking at that person and trying to see them in a potentially different light. So why don't you hit the wood.
Aware enough to give yourself a choice. You can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of her husband who's dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is the low-wage clerk at the motor vehicles department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and who and what is really important, if you want to operate on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you really learn how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful, but sacred, on fire with the same force that lit the stars. Love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that that mystical stuff's necessarily true. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it. This, I submit, is the freedom of real education, of learning how to be well-adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. Because here's something else that's weird but true. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is actually no such thing as atheism. There is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And a compelling reason for maybe choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it JC or Allah, be it Yahweh or the Wiccan mother goddess or the Four Noble Truths or some inviolable set of ethical principles, is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your own body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. And when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally plant you. On one level, we all know this stuff already. It's been codified as myths, proverbs, cliches, epigrams, parables, the skeleton of every great story. The whole trick is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Worship power, you will end up feeling weak and afraid, and you will need ever more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. Look, the insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they're evil or sinful, it is that they are unconscious. They are default settings. They're the kind of worship you just gradually slip into, day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without ever being fully aware that that's what you're doing. And the so-called real world will not discourage you from operating on your default settings, because the so-called real world of men and money and power hums merrily along on the fuel of fear and anger and frustration and craving and the worship of self. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. The freedom all to be lords of our own tiny skull-sized kingdoms, alone at the center of all creation. This kind of freedom has much to recommend it. But of course there are all different kinds of freedom, and the kind that is most precious you will not hear much talked about much in the great outside world of wanting and achieving and displaying. The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty little unsexy ways every day. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing.
Is that good? Kind of heavy, huh? This guy's not a Christian. And I think half of what he said I could have preached, I thought. And I was kind of blown away the first time I heard him. Let me make some remarks about this. There's three things that I want to talk about from this. Number one, the problem of truth and beauty and reality. The problem of truth and reality. He references that on the front end with the story of the atheist guy and the religious guy and the atheist guy who almost dies in a snowstorm, right? And then part two, the problem of worships, what he just said. Everybody worships. And remember, after he shifts from the front portion, he's trying to give warnings. I mean, almost everybody, all the people who are listening are 22 years old, and then of course their parents and their loved ones. And he's warning them, you get to adult life, there's some pitfalls. And he talks about a certain kind of misery that you could just experience just by going to the supermarket. This is a very mundane kind of thing, and you don't have no resources to be able to get outside of your narrow perception of reality, right? But he also, the other thing that he wants to tell you is, well, guess what? This is weird, but nobody's really an atheist. You have to worship something. You all worship something. And if you worship the wrong thing, it'll eat you alive. So that's the second thing he talks about. And then the third thing I want to talk about is, just in a brief way, I want to tell you that I think we believe, I pretty much agree with him about about the way he presents problems. But where we part ways is that we think that in our church we believe that the Christian gospel has a better way, a different way, how you can approach it. He's talking about life. Really, the problems he's really trying to get at is life. And the reason the whole subject, the commencement speech is called "This is Water" is because sometimes he says if you're a fish, and then he says you're in water, and then the fish returns what's water? Because sometimes the deepest problems are so familiar we don't have a name for it. So he goes well, this is water. These whole problems we're talking about, it's like being a fish in water. The problems that we're facing is it's so human. We actually almost it needs to be pointed out. So. Just first, we live in a time where we all do this, that story he said, this problem of truth and reality. Everybody's asking, what's true? What's real? What we tend to do is you have your truth and I have my truth. You have your reality and I have my reality, which is another way of just saying we have our own kind of story that really essentially exists in here. And it used to be when I was young, in my teenage years, everybody thought science can explain everything. And if you just got the facts, and if you just got evidence, then you're in touch with the real. But more and more people realize that's not where people really live. And that's why we live in this time called postmodern, which is the idea that everybody has their own, it's like you really are locked inside your skull. That's like the kingdom of the reality perception that you have. And you really can be like two separate people, two distinct people, and they can look at the same exact thing, and the religious guy goes, well, didn't God answer your prayer? And the snowstorm is you must believe in God, right? And the other guy goes, oh, no, come on. These Eskimos just came along and saved my life. There wasn't any God part, right? And one of the first things I want to say to you is I appreciate that David Foster Wallace made the critique of the atheist guy. But he's right. He's absolutely right. He says, both of them can have the problem. Whether you're a believer, you believe in God and all this other stuff, whatever God or religion you believe in, or whether you are an unbeliever in that sense, you can both fall into the problem that he calls, the arrogant problem, the blind certainty problem. And do you notice that it's not whether you're religious or not religious? You have some perception of reality and some story in which you're living inside that reality, and there's some explanations for what can occur to you that you will entertain, and some explanations, you'll just reject on the front end, and you have a faith in your construction of reality. And regardless of whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, or whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, you already have some kind of like faith-based, because like the guy, do you notice those two guys can argue about it? The atheist guy, and neither of them can prove their position, right? Neither of them can prove. The atheist guy can't prove his position. He's just saying, like the religious guy's like, you prayed, it seems to me. But he has a perception of reality that there is a God, and when you pray, he might actually listen to you, and then he'll do something. But he can't prove that. And the other guy can't prove that. And one of the first points I want to say is this is the human condition. And so Christians, we believe in Jesus and God, the gospel, the Bible, and the whole 9 yards. But we can't prove that. And one of the first things that I want to just present is that we want to, first let's be humans and understand that this is where we're all in this boat. And when we offer the gospel to you, it's not like we got the answers and we're just right and you're wrong, and that's its own kind of Christianized, blind certainty and arrogance, quite frankly. And one of the first things we want to say to you is, I'm a Christian pastor, and I believe these things, but I also know places where I have difficulty believing these things. And even now, I have certain parts of the Bible that are more difficult to me than some parts, right? And I know that's true with pretty much every member of my church, right? And so that's the first thing I just want to say to you, is we want to offer you a certain humility and understanding about this, but also at the same time challenge you that if you want to approach this, you need to have some question that you can't, whatever assumptions and presuppositions you have about how you shape that you're doing that by faith. And that you should be willing to question what you think you know for sure by faith, because maybe it's just part of self-centeredness. Okay? The second thing I want to talk about is this problem of worship that he addresses so well. And within our story, our perception of reality, something has to be really the thing that makes your life meaningful. Right? Something, if you have nothing that makes your life meaningful, you're just an animal that just eats and sleeps, and then maybe you get to copulate and have some little ones, and then you're just waiting to die, and hopefully you can avoid pain in between the birth and the eating and the sleeping and the copulation and the death. Okay? So that's my hamster's life. We have a hamster, right? But the human being isn't like that. The human being has to have something in the center of your life that really gives you joy and meaning. And so when he says, I don't know how you felt about this idea that everybody worships. I think it's extraordinary that a non-Christian guy is saying that, right? Because he's getting at something that every human being wrestles with, and that is something has to be at the center. So, I see this all the time. I see two people. One person may be a Christian, one person's not a Christian. One person, they both lose their jobs, but one person's life falls apart, but the other person's doesn't. Why? Because the job meant something more than just a job. The other person's like, well, I'll get another job, but the other person, they spiral into depression, they fall apart. Whether they're a Christian or not a Christian. Because that meant probably their job and their career, it was closer to worship. And this thing that he said, that whatever you pick, it's very interesting to hear a non-Christian guy say this. He says, that's why it's actually helpful to work, the only choice is what you get to worship, and that's a pretty good reason, a compelling reason why you might choose some God or some sort of spiritual thing to worship. And then he goes down the list, JC, Allah, etc., etc. And it's really interesting because you can feel that he's not sure if these things are true, because he talks about the mystical things. I don't even know if they're true. But we need something like this. And if you pick the wrong thing, it'll eat you up. And that's one of the second things I want to say to you. That number one, we're in this problem of not knowing what the truth and reality is. But the second thing is, you can't not choose something. That's the next thing I want to say. You have to choose something. So you can, it doesn't matter, you can come out here and say, I don't know about the Jesus thing, or the Allah, or the Buddha, okay, whatever religion, that some people want to put that in like a kind of a category, like that's some kind of like an intellectual category. But we're not talking about an intellectual category here. We're talking about something you have to choose to live and base your life on. That's the worship question. And so whether you decide to call yourself a Christian or not a Christian, something is driving your life that you worship, and that is an absolutely unavoidable thing to do unless you want to be a hamster. All right? And so, and I don't see any hamsters in this room here. So, okay? So, that's what we're talking about. First, we're in a human condition right now in our time where we really have problems about truth and reality. And second, you cannot not choose. You cannot not choose. You have to choose. So he talks about you can just try to like mindlessly live your life, and you're creating the meaning of your life through your choices, but actually by not choosing, you're choosing. And you're just choosing kind of a certain misery, and you can bracket off the God question, but actually you're just going to make yourself more vulnerable to being miserable in the supermarket, okay? By not choosing. In that sense, there has to be, not choosing is choosing in that sense, because there's always going to be something that you worship. Okay. The third and last part, and then I'll stop, is, and then hopefully we'll have a nice discussion here. We think that the gospel offers a different and a better way. It's a deeply human problem. And the gospel is good news because it's offering answers to all the okay, here's some of the problems that he offers up. Blind certainty. We think the gospel offers a more humble ground of truth. Not just a blind, arrogant certainty, but a humble ground of truth. We also think the gospel offers a different perspective which can get you away from the frustration and unhappiness and the prison of self-centeredness and entitlement. We think the gospel offers something to that. This question of worship the wrong thing and it'll eat you alive, well, we believe that if you worship the true and living God and salvation through His Son Jesus Christ, that's the one God that won't crush you for failing Him. Because He chose to be crushed. Because He already knows we're going to fail Him. And thus He can love us and forgive us, even as we fail Him. Whereas if you fail the good looks God, and then as soon as you start putting on too much weight and you start losing your hair, that God will crush you, right? And we all know that. It's true. And there's a part there where he talks about if you don't choose, you just kind of like run through your life constantly making choices, and then as you grow older, you'll feel like your life is drained away, and and the way he put it at the end there is, you've lost some infinite thing. That's the way he put it. Something that's infinite. Because that's the human condition. We don't kind of want it. We have to seek and have something that's infinite. Right? And one of the things that Christianity offers you is, we offer you a real diagnosis to why that is the case. And because deep down, you're not wired to be a hamster, you're wired for God. Not just some kind of infinite thing like beauty or justice, but the infinite thing, God Himself. And you get it through a relationship through Jesus Christ. And you don't just get like heaven or church or some advantages like you can get to the supermarket without getting overly angry, but you get God Himself. And that's what we think that the gospel offers, and we think that's worth presenting to you. And in fact, we think it's worth expending energy and time to kindly invite you and spending money to set up a dinner, because we want to share this with you. Obviously, we can't make you receive it because you have to believe it yourself, right? But at the very least, we can kindly offer this to you, which is why we do this. Okay. And so I'll share a Bible verse, and then let's. This is the way. There's so many different ways that the Bible puts this. It says this. A lot of people have different conceptions of Christ, but this is what he says in Ephesians chapter 4. St. Paul put it this way. You have these wrong ways of looking at Christ, but that's not the way you really learned Christ. Assuming that you have heard about Him and were taught in Him, as the truth is in Jesus, Put off your old self, which belongs to a former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires. I mean, David Foster Wallace could have said that. And instead, in Christ, be renewed in the spirit of your mind and put on a new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness through Jesus. Okay, that's the promise. Okay, we got a little mic here or so, and maybe anyone want to kick us off on questions? Ask whatever you want. That's what this is for. And nobody's going to judge you. Not going to be any pressure. We want to just have a good conversation here. I'll do the best I can. And by the way, I make no promise I know everything. If I don't know it, I'll just go, I don't know it. Okay? And that's great.